Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper and are equally relevant for your UPSC preparation. Articles which have been put up for today's discussion, that is 8th of September 2022, are displayed on your screen, and the time stamping along with the notes of this discussion in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. Here is your question for weekly answer writing practice from Rao's IAS. The question is, despite its achievements, the MG-NREGA program faces multiple challenges, which is in turn reducing its effectiveness. Discuss in 250 words. Do write answer to this question and do submit on the eLearn platform of Rao's IAS and get it evaluated by the team of evaluators. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 10th of the Delhi edition and talks about the extension and improvement in the land leasing policy of Indian Railway by the Union government. The context says that central government has extended the benefit under the land leasing policy for Indian Railway land. Now, since 2020, Government of India has been proactive in utilizing the idle land, the waste land, for various purposes. They have used the waste land for solar power generation. They have developed industrial area on the wasteland. They are now leasing the wasteland for the logistic purposes, and in the same background, they are now utilizing the railway access land or the access land across the railway for the utilization of logistic purposes and the power generation. In this regard, they have now extended and improved the land leasing policy for the railway land. As far as syllabus mapping is concerned, so this topic is important for your General Studies Paper 3 under the heading of issues relating to the planning, mobilization of resources and land reforms in India. Now, why do we need such kind of land leasing policy for railway? Now, do understand this, that railway and its property is part of the union government. Everything on the railway station or on the railway track is part of Indian Railway and comes under the jurisdiction of central government. And that is one of the reasons why central government has the entire administrative setup for the railway despite being a profit-oriented public sector undertaking. The need for this policy is that, first of all, there is a huge chunk of unused railway land across India, especially around the railway stations. Because of lack of proper regulation and monitoring, there have been the cases of illegal encroachment over such excessive lands. The best example here would be the encroachment besides the railway track in Delhi and Mumbai. The railway is going through the revenue losses, so they are running for the revenue gain and they want to earn money out of the land monetization. As we know that union government is also looking for the phased privatization of the railway resources and the assets associated, and this is one of the best utilization of the excess land available for the railway. And lastly, as the logistics sector is now growing at a double digit annually, Government of India is utilizing the availability of its land to capture or to attract the logistics sector in order to gain the monetary benefits. As far as objective is concerned, so the best objective or the topmost objective of this policy is that government want to utilize the land for the cargo use, for the storage purposes and for the logistic purposes, and also to reduce down the cost of operation for railway and the cargo it has. Now, what policy will offer? First of all, it will provide the leasing facility to the private player, they can lease a particular parcel of land up to 35 years. Previously, it was just 5 years. And they are required to pay 1.5% of the market value of the land to be the rent. For instance, if the market value of land is, let's say, 100 crore. So their annual rent would be 1.5 CR or 1.5 crore. So that firm will be required to pay 1.5 crore as annual rent to the government. And this will definitely generate the revenues for the same. Government is also looking to increase the number of cargo terminals up to 300 across the country. And as there will be more infrastructure development, of course, it will be like a multiplier effect to the employment in the country. They will use the railway land to set up the solar power plant. The same solar can be utilized to lit up the railway station, the tracks, and of course, it can also be sold to the private agencies or the state discoms. It will also encourage the development of social infrastructure. So any of government building, let's say a hospital or a school or any dispensary, can be set up on this particular land for the lease purposes. As far as benefits are concerned, so of course, it will talk about the better implementation of the Gati Shakti framework, where government is looking to provide the intensive infrastructure development across the nation. It will also provide the increasing share of railway in the freight transportation. Because see, as of now, railway does not have a higher share. It is around 1/4 of the total freight which is moving inside and outside the country. And that is one of the reasons why railway is far behind that of the road transportation in the country. And as the cargo infrastructure is developed across the railway stations or across the railway tracks, definitely railway will get more demand on the cargo transportation. It will speed up the disinvestment of the Container Corporation of India Limited, because CCIL also holds a large chunk of property, land area under its ambit. That land area will now be leased. So this will actually lead towards the disinvestment of the container. There will be annual revenue generation, so it will be a regular source of earning to the railways. It will also control the illegal encroachment, because now the idle land which was actually being illegally encroached by the people will now be utilized for the cargo or the logistic purposes. And it will bring more private sector participation, that is bringing efficiency and competitiveness. However, there are certain limitations. The first one is it has provided a very long duration. Assume that for 35 years they are providing the land leasing facility. But let's say 8 year or 10 year down the line, Government of India requires that particular land for the development and the expansion of railway. However, the contract will go against the government itself. So it will make it more rigid. Government will restrict its own development on the idle land. The second one is it is missing the regional balance, as the majority of the railway in India is concentrated in the northern plains, especially the state of Uttar Pradesh, which has a very high density. It will provide the benefit to those players, private sector, which wants to invest in these plain areas. On the other hand, the hilly areas of Himalayas or the Western Ghats will get lesser participation in this regard. And lastly, there is over dependence on the private sector. Why government is not looking to expand its own infrastructure on its own land? Why they are leasing it out, and why not they are utilizing it for the efficient utilization of the railway to reduce the cost of operation? Now, given this entire discussion, let us look into how can we solve the freight problem of Indian Railway. That is, how can we increase the transportation of freight from the Indian Railway going to the other parts of the country? Simply means, how can we increase the transportation from Indian Railway? Because Indian Railway is far behind. But before that, we have taken two screenshots from the Google Earth to explain you what government is actually looking at. On the left side of your screen, you have a Gurugram dry port. It is situated in the state of Haryana on Delhi-Jaipur railway track. On this railway track, government has created a dry port. As you can see, this is a dry port which contains containers transported from various parts of the country. Here also government has excessive land, as you can see, so they can utilize this for the future purpose. On the other hand, we have the CST or Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus in Mumbai. It's a railway station, very large one. Here you have almost negligible land available. So in one side we have excessive land, on the other side we have negligible land. So government want to utilize a middle path and wants to find out a way where small land across the railway tracks or the railway land can be utilized to create the cargo centers for the better logistic purposes. Now, as you can see from this pie chart, railway almost contribute 27% of the entire freight traffic in the country. They contribute almost 1418 million tons of freight in the last financial year, which is just 27%. The highest share of cargo transportation in India is by the roads. The second highest is railway and the third highest goes to the coastal shipping. Now, government through various programs such as Sagarmala, Bharatmala or even the dedicated freight corridor has tried to increase the share of railways and the coastal shipping for the cargo transportation. If we go through the important solution, now please understand all these solutions are given by Niti Aayog. So they are very authentic and you can utilize these solutions in your answer writing as well. So how can we increase the cargo or the rail transportation in the country? The first one is that we should increase the rail network itself. Then we have to increase the share of intermodal transportation. For example, if the railway is transporting a particular good to Delhi, from Delhi to the hinterlands, let's say to the smaller cities or to the village area, we should have a dedicated transportation facility through various axes. Government need to expand the existing infrastructure by increasing the axle loads, increasing the train length and even enabling the train to move faster at speed. They require the dedicated freight corridors. Now you must be well aware that one dedicated freight corridor is already functioning. However, it has not been completed as of now. And that is the Western Dedicated Freight Corridor, which is passing from the state of Rajasthan and Gujarat, connecting Jawaharlal Nehru Port in Mumbai to that of Dadri in Uttar Pradesh. Apart from that, we have various other dedicated freight corridors, which includes the Eastern DFC, Southern DFC, East-West DFC, South-North DFC, Southern DFC and East Coast DFC. All these dedicated freight corridors are going to increase the share of railway tonnage for their transportation. Government need to identify and upgrade the existing corridors for the high potential intramodal transportation, and they need to require connectivity through rail, road and water. And that is the reason why the dedicated freight corridor, as you can see, Delhi, which is at the hinterland, has been connected to the Jawaharlal Nehru Port. So it simply means that land area is now being connected using the railway to the coastal areas for better shipping. Apart from this, we need improved transportation practices and warehousing practices across the country. India also requires right type of trucks depending upon the uses of a particular freight. We require efficient packaging and the loading system, improving setting of the warehouses and implementation of digitized tools. Government also requires better fuel efficiency in terms of transportation. For this, electric vehicle in the intramodal system can be utilized. Electric vehicles and cleaner fuel are the answer to the future. It does not mean that only railway will resolve all the issues. Railway will bring a particular good to a particular place. Beyond that, it is the responsibilities of the other vehicles to transport it to the further locations. And for that matter, electric vehicles can be a game changer. Government has already launched faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicle FAME 1 and FAME 2 scheme to expand the electric vehicle. So electric vehicle along with the railways, using the electricity is also going to be environmentally sustainable in the cargo transportation across India. So, based on these solutions, I am leaving you with this question. Do you think that railway land leasing policy is beneficial to improve logistics in India? Support with argument. So we have discussed n number of arguments. You can utilize that. Also suggest measure to improve the freight share of Indian Railway that we have already discussed. Try to answer this question in about 250 words for better practice. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 12 and gives us the information for the prelims pointer on Border Road Organization and Amarnath Temple. Now, before venturing into the temple and its information, let us look into what UPSC has been asking. Now, in 2016 and in 2017 and repeated in 2021 and 2022. In these years, UPSC has asked questions with respect to various temples. For example, in 2016, they have asked questions with respect to the places of pilgrimage and their various locations. In 2017, they asked questions with respect to the sun temples across India. In 2020, that is in this year's prelim examination, they asked a question with respect to the Somnath temple and detailed information on that. So, given the kind of trend that UPSC is following, we are going to discuss on the Amarnath temple. Now, Amarnath temple, first of all, is not a structural temple. It is not a man-made temple. It is a natural cave temple which is dedicated to Lord Shiva under Hinduism. It is located in the Little Valley of Anantnag district in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and has a very limited period of pilgrimage, hardly 50 to 60 days in a year because of the heavy snowfall and security reasons. This temple is part of one of the Shakti Peeth under Hinduism, and the lingam is a natural stalagmite formation and it is located in the Amarnath mountain. So the mountain in which this cave is located is Amarnath mountain itself. In the history, the same temple has reference in Mahabharata, Purana, and even the best source ever recorded in the medieval history of India, that is Raj Tarangini by Kalhan. Now, Kalhan wrote the history of Kashmir in Raj Tarangini, in which he mentioned about the Amarnath temple. Now, beyond this discussion, we should also know where this temple is located, because UPSC has been asking questions with respect to the locations also. Now, as you can see, the central part on this image is the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and on the northeastern side, that is over here, closer to the border of Union Territory of Ladakh, we have the temple of Amarnath. Now, as the article was also talking about the Border Road Organization and how Border Road Organization is now going to take over the maintenance of Amarnath Yatra, this organization becomes important from the perspective of prelim examination. This organization, which was previously under the Ministry of Road Development, is now under the Ministry of Defense. So this is an important pointer, do remember this. But BRO is not a defense force. It is under the Ministry of Defense, but it is not a defense force. It is an organization which was founded in 1960 to have two basic purposes. The first one is the road network development on the border areas of India. Because border areas are the strategic areas and they require the development on the means of security purposes. And for the same, they are also providing the infrastructure development on the border areas so as to bring the development to the remotest possible area in the country. We have the examples. BRO is involved in building the roads in Arunachal Pradesh. They are also involved in building the roads even in the Ladakh region to maintain India's security perspective. Then recently, this organization was in the news for the construction of Atal Tunnel in Himachal Pradesh. It is also building roads in other countries which have friendly relations with India, such as Afghanistan, Bhutan, Myanmar and Sri Lanka. In Afghanistan, they have constructed the Dilaram Zarang Highway to connect the different portions of Afghanistan and provide the easy connectivity for security and strategic purposes. With this discussion place, now I am leaving you with these two important questions. The first one on border road organization and the second one on Amarnath temple. Do read these questions thoroughly and try to answer the correct option in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 14, that is the business page, and the article talks about the view of Reserve Bank of India on the central bank digital currency. According to the Reserve Bank of India, this currency will reduce time and the cost for India's cross-border businesses. Now, the context has already been discussed in the DNS, and the link for that video is given in the description box for more detail. Today we are going to look into what are the basics of CBDC and whether it is beneficial to the society or economy or not. So, central bank digital currency, which is going to be introduced this year in the phased manner. So please understand, this will be introduced in the phased manner, maybe for certain sectors or maybe for certain banks or for certain uses. This year, it is going to become a tool for reducing the time and cost for the cross-border transactions for RBI. Now, as far as syllabus is concerned, so it can fall under the GS paper 3 in the mains examination under the category of mobilization of resources. In the prelim examination, UPSC has asked n number of questions with respect to the RBI and its policies. So do focus on that. Now, what is a central bank digital currency? It is a digital form of India's fiat currency. Now, fiat currency is the one which is backed by the government. Now, do not get confused between the central bank digital currency and e-rupee. Now, e-rupee is nothing but the utilization of unified payment interface in the non-smartphones. So we have people across the nation who are using the smaller phones or the conventional keypad mobile phones which are not the smartphones and they do not use the internet. For those people, government has launched the e-rupee, which functions as a token and it is used as a form of UPI for those people to transfer money from one bank to the other for the payment purposes. However, CBDC is a country's fiat currency. So it is also like rupee. So it is India's currency and it is a fiat currency, which means it is backed by RBI. RBI and Government of India will give you the assurance that yes, this is the authentic source of transaction and you can transact any good and services utilizing this digital currency without any fear. It is a claim on the central bank. Now, please understand that whenever you put any transaction through the form of UPI, credit card, debit card, ATM card, all your liability lies on that particular bank. Let's say today you are making a UPI using the State Bank of India account and you are using the Paytm or PhonePe. So who is responsible here? On whom can you make the claim? You can make the claim on SBI and not the RBI because the sole authority for this transaction would be the SBI who is responsible for conducting this transaction. SBI is not responsible to say whether the money that you are transferring is right or wrong. However, as far as central bank digital currency is concerned, here all the claims will lie on the Reserve Bank of India. So whether you are making a transaction and whether the currency which is being used in the transaction is the right currency or not, or whether this is a counterfeit part of the digital currency or not, that will be answered by the central bank. As it is a fiat currency, it will be issued by the Reserve Bank of India only. It is a legal tender and it is accepted for the payment for various transactions within a country. Now let me explain you why we say it is a legal tender. Now as you can see on the screen, this is a 500 rupee bill or 500 rupee note used for transaction in India. Now according to this currency note, you will find that here the governor of Reserve Bank of India, Urjit Patel, has promised to pay the bearer. Bearer means the person who is holding this currency or this note in his hand. So he has promised that this piece of paper, which is a currency note, value 500 rupee. So this is legally defined. Now RBI governor is a legal authority under the RBI Act. That is the reason why it is a legal tender. And the currency which will be issued by the central bank for the digital transaction or the digital currency will be the legal tender itself. Now how it will look? It may be a form of token, it may be a prepaid card, or it may be just a transaction value on your cell phone. It will enjoy more amount of stability and less volatility because every money, every rupee under the central bank digital currency will be under the scrutiny of Reserve Bank of India. As of now, what we see that the physical currency that we have, the rupee note, the coins, they may not be in the control of RBI. RBI may not know that how much money is there in the unorganized market, how much money is there in the black market, or what is the exact value of counterfeit currency. But when it comes to the digital currency, every rupee which is in the transaction will be known to the RBI because it is part of the system. It is not outside the system. Now let us discuss about the benefits and the concerns associated with the central bank digital currency. The first benefit is that it will ensure the public access to the legal tender if the cash in the future is phased out. It will move the country and the society to the cashless society. It will break down the monopoly of the cryptocurrency where people are blindly investing their funds without any regulatory framework. It will bring more financial stability, which simply means that the number of counterfeit currency, the amount of black money which is in the circulation in the economy will go down, and it will ensure the faster transmission of monetary policy. Now, when RBI reduces the repo rate, it will have impact on the economy, and that impact will be cent percent because government and RBI know the level of money in the economy. It will promote the cashless society, financial inclusion. Financial inclusion here simply means that it will bring more level of people to utilize the digital currency for their day-to-day transactions. So they will be financially more included. It will increase the effectiveness of monetary policy. So transmission of monetary policy would become more easier. It will push the development of financial technology center, including the UPI apps. It will provide the real-time picture of the economic activity. So as government know what and how much money is there in the economy, they will clearly know how it is going to frame the policies for the better GDP estimates. It can easily be traceable and can fight the corruption and money laundering. So the moment a person make the digital transaction, it will be known to the RBI and the central government. So if that digital transaction is going for the corrupt practices, it can easily be traceable. However, there are certain concerns. The first concern is that it provides the hurdle of complex technology, design and policy economic issues. So government need to be ready with all these framework before rolling it out. The second one is it goes against the traditional banking system. The moment you think that your entire salary in a month is there in the mobile phone. So what is the need for traditional bank? The brick mortar bank will be useless. And the moment people think in that manner, such commercial bank would need to invest more money to attract the consumers towards their functioning. And that will increase the cost of their transaction. Privacy is the another issue. Every transaction is known to the government. And that is the reason why every person who is using the digital currency could be the easy target. And do Indians have the high digital literacy? How many Indians actually know how to utilize the digital currency or how to make payments? It's not known to the people in the rural areas. And even if it is known to the rural areas, the people who are aged, the old age people in the society are completely unaware, or there are very less number of people at the old age who are utilizing the digital currency. It violates the privacy of individual and right to be forgotten. Every transaction is known to the government. Whatever you buy, whenever you buy is known to the RBI. And lastly, as it is a digital currency, it is not completely safe from the cyber attack. With this discussion in place, now I am leaving you with this mains practice question, and it is very likely that this year UPSC may ask question with respect to the digital bank currency in the mains examination. So do prepare this topic thoroughly along with the link that we have provided in the description box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 6, that is the editorial page. This article actually talks about that how India has been framing its inflation targeting. Now, under the monetary policy framework, since 2015, India has been targeting a particular band of inflation through the approach of RBI. And in this article, the author has highlighted that why this policy has been on the lines of Anglo-American economies and not suitable for India. The majority part of the article is not usable for the UPSC preparation, hence not required to be read. However, the thing which is important in the article has been expanded and thoroughly discussed in the upcoming discussion. So let's start with the background first. In 2015, the Reserve Bank of India began the inflation targeting, and this was under the monetary policy framework, which got the statutory backing under the RBI Act. And through this monetary policy framework, RBI became the sole authority along with the Government of India through the discussion and deliberation to decide what should be the ideal rate target for the inflation. Now, government has decided along with the RBI that the bandwidth of inflation should be 4% plus minus 2%. That is, the maximum should be 6% and the minimum should be 2%. Now, a curious mind should think that why not government is targeting the zero inflation? Why do we need inflation at 2%? Or why don't we need inflation beyond 6%? Why this is a range which is being adopted by the government? The point is, very high inflation and very low inflation actually hurt the economy to a larger extent. That is the reason why 2 to 6% is considered to be a moderate rate of inflation in India. Now, why government says that high and low inflation hurt the economy? Now, let's discuss the first. If the inflation rate is high or beyond 6%, what will happen? First of all, it will become unaffordable for the poor person to buy goods and services. Higher prices will hurt the purchasing power of the poor section, and they will be denied with the basic goods and services, including the basic food items. It will decrease the saving because as the prices increases, the real income falls. So as we increase the prices, ultimately the real income of the consumer fall. Now, what is the real income? Real income is the income which we get after reducing the inflation. So that real income will fall, and that lower income will reduce the saving potential of the citizens. Lower the saving means they will demand less. So let's say a person or a family was planning to buy a house, but because of the higher inflation, their monthly expenditure has increased. As their monthly expenditure has increased, now they do not have savings to get a loan and buy a house. So what they will do? They will delay or cancel out their demand in the short term and in the long term. Lower demand simply proves that there will be low investment. So now as they are not demanding the house, they are not getting the home loan, the person who is constructing the house, the real estate sector, will not invest money in the real estate sector. If people are not building the residential buildings, if the investors are not there, then ultimately there will be no jobs available in the construction sector. If jobs are not there in the construction sector, there will be fall in the production of goods. Let's say the cement, the steel, and ultimately there will be the scarcity inflation. Scarcity inflation simply means that when the cement production has reduced, Because of the low investment and low demand, then the sectors which are in the demand of cement will find cement to be a scarce good, and they will pay more to get the cement, and ultimately prices of cement will increase. So it's like a cycle, inflation leading to the inflation. It will increase the import dependence of India. So higher domestic prices simply means that you are going to import it from outside. So if food prices in India are higher, if wheat prices in India are higher, then the flour manufacturer will import the wheat from outside India. And ultimately, it will increase the current account deficit on India's balance of payment. And lastly, it will increase the fiscal deficit of the government. Government is now looking to provide more benefit to the people. They are spending more, they are getting less. When they are getting less and spending more, higher fiscal deficit will definitely lead to the impact on the interest rate and ultimately hurting the economic stability. However, lower rate of interest, let's say less than 2%. Why this is not good? Lower inflation simply means that the producer, the manufacturer who are spending to produce something are looking for higher prices on their product. So they are incentivized. When prices are low, they are de-incentivized to produce something new. Similarly, lower prices simply proves that government will have low revenue on its account. Low revenue means they will invest low. Low revenue means there will be low jobs and they will fall in the GDP. And the same is applicable even to the private sector also. Private sector, let's say there's a company, cement company. Now they are getting low revenue. So low revenue means they will have low profit to invest. So they will not demand more people in the cement factory. And ultimately the GDP of cement will fall. So given this basic discussion, let us look into what are the basic benefits and the limitations of inflation targeting in country. Should we go for it or should we not? The first one is that moderate rate of inflation promotes the economic stability and development that we have already seen. Enhance the transparency and the predictability. Now, whatever RBI is planning through the Monetary Policy Committee to target the inflation is now transparent. They are giving the arguments behind that targeting and their predictability has increased. Now, how this has done? Now, we know that RBI is targeting the inflation between 2 to 6%. It simply means that when the target is breached, let's say the inflation is 7%. Now, we can predict that now RBI will take the strong policies, the tough monetary policy. And when the inflation is below 2%, it simply means that RBI will have the easy monetary policy. So, the predictability of monetary policy becomes simple. Then there is the consistency. It simply proves that if the inflation is at, let's say, 10%, so till it reaches the 6%, we can see that there will be the consistency in the policy of RBI. So consistency simply means that here the RBI will be focusing more towards reducing the inflationary rate, and in that manner their policy will be harder on its approach. It matches the autonomy of RBI with its accountability. Now, RBI is accountable to the money market and the overall financial sector in the country. So, controlling the inflation is the first objective of RBI. So, it is meeting the accountability. And RBI is deciding on the rate of interest through various policy rates such as repo rate, reverse repo rate and others. It simply means that RBI is using its autonomy power. The last one is that we have the empirical evidences used in United Kingdom and even in the New Zealand for the monetary policy framework to control the inflation, and that has been very successful. On the other hand, there are certain limitations. The first one is that RBI is not the only organization to look into the inflationary pressure. Government is also responsible through the fiscal policy to control the inflation. Apart from that, RBI is also holding many multifaceted role. It has to monitor and regulate the money market. It has to monitor and regulate the banking sector. But as of now, it seems like that RBI's sole objective has become to control the inflation. As we have learned through the global financial crisis of 2008 and 9, there is no major linkages that when we control the prices, there will be financial stability. No, such issues was not there. There was a financial instability in 2008 and 9 during the global financial crisis because of the subprime crisis in the United States. Next comes that it cannot control the supply side inflationary pressure. For example, there were the crunches of goods and services during the COVID crisis, or there might be the wastage of food product during the monsoon season. All this cannot be controlled through the monetary policy framework. And the last one is the low inflation does not ensure higher GDP. As we have seen between the decade of 2011 to 2020 that despite the best of its effort, despite achieving the lower inflationary rate of 2 to 3% at number of times, there was no sign of higher GDP growth. So if government and RBI is thinking that through controlling the inflation, they can actually increase the GDP, they are not completely correct. Now with this discussion place, let us now move to the last article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 7, that is the editorial page, and talks about the role of CSR, that is corporate social responsibility, in funding the non-government organizations. See, non-government organization is a favorite topic of UPSC in your general studies paper 2, under which they have asked question with respect to the development processes, the development industry, the role of NGOs and the self-help groups. The context of the article says that CSR by the corporate is done mainly for the legal compliance, that is to meet the targets and the provisions of Companies Act 2013 and not for the overall development of social sector in India. However, the article has highlighted that if there is a good connection between the CSR funding and the NGOs, India can achieve the social sector initiative and their outcomes in a faster manner. Now do understand this. As per the Companies Act 2013, the funds goes from a corporate to an NGO, and this is known as CSR funding. Now under this act, every corporate which meets the certain criteria are required to provide the funding to a particular NGO for the social sector initiative. Now what corporates are doing? They are actually just meeting the provision. They are just handing over the money without any other initiative to improve the condition of the NGOs or to utilize the role of NGOs to meet the social sector initiative. They are just doing their duty by giving the money and not following up that whether the money which they have given under the CSR was utilized for better benefits or not. Now, according to the section 135 of the Companies Act, this is very important. This section says that corporate social responsibility, where a company, and this could be any company registered under the Companies Act, required to spend a section or a part of money for the social welfare programs in India. And they are mandated to have audit committee, nomination and remuneration committee, stakeholders relationship committee and CSR committee. So the last committee which is mentioned under this section is looking for the allocation of funds for the social sector initiatives. Now every company according to the act says that required to pay 2% of their average net profit. See, 2% of profit and not of the earnings. So let's say they have earned 500 crore rupees, but out of this, the entire profit that they had in their hand was only 20 crores. Now 2% of the 20 crores simply means that they are required to pay 40 lakh rupees for the CSR funding. Now, which company will pay this 2%? A company which has a net worth of 500 crores or more, a turnover of 1000 crore or more, and a net profit of 5 crore or more. So this company will pay 2% of their average profit to the CSR. Now, according to this act, these are the following provision on which money should be spent: hunger, poverty, education, gender equality, women empowerment, child mortality, maternal health, deficiency of various diseases including the malaria, environmental sustainability, which may also include the phasing out of plastic. vocational training given to the certain section of the society, social business projects, Prime Minister National Relief Fund, welfare of the scheduled caste and other vulnerable groups in the society. So all these provisions actually talks about the vulnerable sections and their improvement overall. As per this article, there are three kinds of funding which the companies are providing. The first one is the program proponent, where the companies are actually thinking to look into the outcomes, whether the NGO is giving the outcomes for the money they have provided or not. The other are not that rigid. They support the indirect cost and the organizational development. So they will provide the money and support, let's say, the electricity bill of an NGO. They might support even the cost, the other costs such as infrastructure cost or the rent in the NGO. The third kind of investors or the lenders are that value in investing in the stronger organization in addition to the program, which simply means that they will give money to those NGOs which have strong organization and which have better results in the past. Now, as we have discussed, the Companies Act mandates the companies to give the CSR to the NGOs. Now, the point is, after giving the money, they are not following up the progress on the social sector. So what NGOs are doing, whether they are performing better or not, should be the ethical and moral responsibility of the companies giving the CSR funds. Now, what benefit does that hold? If the CSR funding also goes with the accountability mechanism, if the companies giving the CSR fund also look into the outcomes of the NGOs, what will be the benefit? Such kind of involvement and collaborative approach will increase the collective impact potential. So see, let's say an NGO has changed the life of, let's say, 20 people. Now, when the company attaches with the NGO, now company has a huge resources at its disposal, so they can provide more access to different resources, and now NGO can even benefit, let's say, 50 people. Now, how this is done? They will get the financial support on the cost of operation, let's say transportation. They will get better governance. Instead of, they will have more choices on the operation, and they will have the professional support. So let's say there is a company known as TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, and they are providing 1 crore to let's say an NGO known as Pratham. Now, the Pratham will be utilizing this 1 CR for sure, but TCS can also provide, let's say, the professional advice on education sector. The entire crux of the article says that instead of just giving the money, the companies giving the CSR should delve into providing the additional support to such NGOs. With this discussion place, now I am leaving you with this question to practice. So do read this question thoroughly and try to answer in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified, and we come to the question of the day. The answer to yesterday's question of the day was option D, that is the state of Kerala. And the question for today is, consider the following statements related to the monetary policy framework in India. The option 1 says that it has been given statutory backing under the RBI Act 1934, and second statement says that it calls upon the government to fix the inflation target in consultation with the RBI every 5 years. Now, go through these points and try to identify the correct answer and do comment in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplify. Thank you.